Now, you've been monitoring Nigel Farage's barnstorming speech there. We'll get to that in a minute, but let's talk about today's high drama, in fact, the high drama of the last 24 hours. I think it's something very strange we're witnessing right here. I mean, yesterday, the Prime Minister had to lose his right-hand man with whom he was virtually joined at the hip, Morgan McSweeney. Today he's lost his communications chief, Tim Allen. So his inner circle is being dismantled. And it strikes me that is at the demand, at the request of the backbenchers who don't like the way he's been running the Downing Street operation. So he's doing what they're telling him and getting rid of all his supporters, his acolytes, his inner circle, the people who support him, his support system. So ironically, as he battles to survive, it seems to me he's destroying his chances of surviving.
Well, the wheels are totally coming off, Kev. There's no denying that. Clearly, the backbenchers now feel totally emboldened by what they see as a weak, lame duck Prime Minister. They have been calling the shots for a while now. You think right back to that welfare rebellion last summer, where they forced Keir Starmer to come back from the ledge. Ever since then, what we've seen is a more muscular parliamentary Labour Party and power flowing from number 10 Downing Street onto the backbenchers. And this is just the latest culmination of that. The backbenchers made clear, many of them anyway, that they didn't like Morgan McSweeney. They felt like he centralised control in number 10. They felt like they had been frozen out of decision-making. He was therefore the lightning rod for many issues, but especially the Peter Mandelson scandal. And he's had to take the fall for it. Now, the question on everybody's lips in Westminster today is, how can the person who advised the Prime Minister on the Peter Mandelson scandal have to lose his job, but the person who actually decided to appoint Peter Mandelson, aka the Prime Minister, stay in his job? And if I'm honest, it doesn't look like he's that secure in his position.
Exactly right. I mean, Morgan McSweeney, in a bid to protect Starmer, a desperate bid to protect him, said, I take full responsibility for the wrong decision to appoint Peter Mandelson as our ambassador in Washington. Well, Morgan, nice move, but you can't take full responsibility because the full responsibility for that decision was not yours. The full responsibility for that decision was the Prime Minister's. Therefore, it's down to Starmer. It's not down to McSweeney. As you say, McSweeney's gone to try and save Starmer, but the problem remains. Starmer appointed Peter Mandelson in the full knowledge that this guy had continued his friendship, his close friendship, with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted paedophile American billionaire. And that must surely do for the Prime Minister. Whilst he's got that on his CV, he can't remain in position, can he?
Well, I think, Kev, that even for a very strong leader who is popular with their party and the country, the Mandelson scandal, even in isolation, will be too much to weather. But Starmer is neither of those things. He is the most unpopular Prime Minister on record. And also, he has shot his authority with his own party. I mean, if you just look at his past 18 months, we've had U-turns galore. We've had all manner of ministerial scandals. We've had an economy on its knees. The Labour backbenchers have been unhappy. And so clearly he's burnt through any crumbs of political capital he's already had after that election. So it's already a febrile state. Then you have the Mandelson scandal. Now, even if he can ride out this week, we've had a sort of a painfully forced rallying round by the cabinet in the last hour or so. Even if he can get through the next few days, just look at the pitfalls he's got ahead. He's got a very dangerous by-election up in Manchester, in which he stopped Andy Burnham from running, someone that probably could have won that by-election. It now looks like Labour could be pushed into third by the Greens and Reform. You then have this massive treasure trove of documents and texts and emails exchanged by Mandelson and key figures in number 10. That's going to be coming out in the next few weeks. You have the May local elections, which looks like it's going to be an absolute bloodbath for Labour. Any one of these things could be the straw that breaks the camel's back and brings the curtain down on Keir Starmer's premiership.
Absolutely, and all of a sudden, so after McSweeney quit yesterday, in fact, all the way through the weekend leading up to McSweeney's shock resignation, and then afterwards, there's been this absolute ominous silence from his front benches from the cabinet. All we got through Friday and Saturday was through friends, both David Lammy and Angela Rayner, saying, we told Starmer, don't give that job to Peter Mandelson. We advised him not to do this, but he didn't listen to us. That's all we heard from the entire cabinet. And then all of a sudden today, around about 2:30 p.m, 2:30 in the afternoon, 2.5 hours ago or so, they started tweeting about every 2 minutes. You know, first it was Reeves, then it was Yvette Cooper, then it was Chris Reed, then it was Angela Rayner, then David Lammy. What minute by minute by minute, these effusive tweets of support. We still haven't, though, significantly. It strikes me, you tell me what you think, Jack, but it strikes me that was a 3-line whip. They were all ordered to do it because they hadn't done it beforehand. And it's interesting that neither Shabana Mahmood nor Ed Miliband, and indeed several others on the cabinet, have yet to tweet.
Well, I think in the past 20 minutes or so, they all have now. He's got the full House of Cabinet.
The full House, has he now?
The full House have come out, and because you know, the Downing Street operation can spring into action at times of crisis, and clearly have sent a clarion call round to Keir Starmer's top team, saying that you need to come out in support of the Prime Minister. At that point, what it usually is an exercise in smoking out any potential rivals. So it's not actually a question of who does come out and say they are supporting Keir Starmer, but who doesn't. And therefore, the pressure on potential leadership candidates to come out is enormous. Two things I would say to this. Clearly, they have felt very, very vulnerable after Anas Sarwar came out and called for Keir Starmer to resign. You know, in terms of the public calls for Keir Starmer to go, it's really been confined so far to a few of sort of the usual left-wing suspects, although privately many more are saying to me that this is terminal for him. But also, you know, for a Prime Minister now to be in this vulnerable position, I think really speaks to a sort of inevitability feeling in Westminster here. I think the only thing really saving him at the moment is that lack of viable candidates to replace him. And that's probably why you saw people like Angela Rayner, West Streeting coming out, because they're not yet ready to pull the trigger.
Angela Rayner needs to sort out her stamp duty problems. As soon as she's got those sorted out, I don't think we'll be getting any tweets of support from Ms Rayner. We've just seen Nigel Farage making his barnstorming speech to the Reform faithful at the Reform rally at the NEC in Birmingham. They say that the best trait for a politician to have is good luck, good fortune. Nigel Farage has it in spades, doesn't he? I mean, this was arranged many months ago, this rally, but for him, it couldn't have come at a better time with the Prime Minister teetering on the edge. That speech he made was pretty impressive just now, wasn't it?
Well, you say that, although maybe he wanted a clear run at the papers tomorrow, because you know, I can imagine that the Starmer scandal is going to be dominating many of them rather than Nigel Farage's speech. But listen, you know, what's bad for Starmer is good for the opposition, and that remains to be true. And so clearly there are going to be bruises to be punched, and you don't get sort of a better bruise puncher in Westminster than Nigel Farage. He's clearly very effective prosecuting the argument. I'd say so is Kemi Badenoch. I think she's been doing a fairly good job of that recently. But in terms of that pulling power and that sort of box office, you know, rock and roll politics, clearly Nigel Farage has cornered the market in pyrotechnics and big studios and pulling in the punters and the rest of it.
Exactly right. Very quickly, Jack, 'cause we've got to go to break, but we're still in a situation, it seems to me, in terms of Starmer's duration at number 10 Downing Street. It's a question not of if, it's when, isn't it?
There is a growing feeling that that is the case, because with all these scandals aside, all you have to do is just look at the numbers. I mean, the polling is just dire. You know, so soon after that landslide majority, it is just taking a tumble so quickly. And, you know, in politics, the numbers don't lie.
He hasn't got long for this world, if you ask me.
When it comes to chaos, Jeffrey Epstein sure brought enough with him.
I'll tell you, what I find very, well, kind of ironical, really, is that everybody said, oh, when these files come out, they're going to bring down the American government, they're going to cause trouble for all the people in high places in Washington, it's going to be an American earthquake. Well, in America, basically, they've come and gone and not much has happened. Over in Britain, we've had a massive earthquake. It could well bring our government down. And what I want to ask you is, how much trouble is the royal family in now? The King, as you probably know, has just made clear, just issued a statement making clear, and I'm quoting, his profound concern at allegations over his brother Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's conduct, and will, again I'm quoting, will stand ready to support the police if approached over the claims. So the King knows that coming up is a criminal investigation into his brother. Now, we've seen the copies of the memos, the emails that the then Prince allegedly forwarded to his chum, Jeffrey Epstein, the American paedophile billionaire, when he was trade envoy back in the noughties. Now, if those emails, the forwarding of those emails, if that's true, if that can be verified, if he actually did that, that is a misconduct in a public office of a very serious kind. Treachery, potentially even treason. He could be going to jail. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
It is extraordinary. And I have mentioned this earlier, so I apologize if anyone else has heard me say it, but I think what's notable to me is the overlap. You know, I'm hearing you talk so much about Peter Mandelson. You know, he was the UK business secretary. Andrew was serving as trade envoy. Between 2009 and 2010, Mandelson was alleged to have, he allegedly shared market-sensitive UK and EU government information with Epstein. I'm not saying that there's a personal relationship with Mandelson and Andrew, but there is a shared risk pattern. Both were feeding sensitive access to a man whose business dealings were murky and potentially hostile to UK interests. That matters because it shows how Epstein really operated and made his money by selling access at the highest levels of politics, royalty, finance, and tech. But for Andrew, you know, official guidance says trade envoys have a duty of confidentiality with sensitive commercial or political information. And it's clear in these documents that he violated that.
Indeed. And how is this all being taken over in America? How are Americans receiving this news? I mean, as I say, all the trouble from the Epstein files is unfolding on this side of the Atlantic. How is that being reported in America? How is it being greeted by the American public? Are they on the case insofar as this is an existential problem, an existential crisis for the royal family? Andrew has brought them low. Are the Americans aware of the magnitude of this?
Well, yeah, and I think it's interesting because I had this conversation with royal commentators that I really respect before these files were dropped. And our opinion was, what else can you do to Andrew? I mean, what else is there to do? You know, like, you can't hurt him any more than you have. And here we are. But I think that there are still repercussions to come in the United States. You're really just seeing Bill Gates take the brunt of it right now. You saw a very well-rehearsed interview in Australia that he did where he basically, I don't know how many times he had to repeat the same answers in a mirror, but you can just tell that he was, the whole moment was choreographed. Every second of that was choreographed. But after months of defying congressional subpoenas, Bill and Hillary Clinton have agreed to testify in the House Oversight Committee's investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Some might argue, why can't Prince Andrew if Bill and Hillary are going to do it? But their decision came at the last minute, just before a scheduled vote that could have referred them to the Justice Department for possible prosecution. I don't think it's that intense for Andrew yet. Ghislaine Maxwell, we know, is planning on pleading the Fifth today. But are Ghislaine and Andrew, or even the Clintons, reliable witnesses? Are they credible sources? I would argue not so much. I think that they are going to protect themselves first and foremost.
I think that Andrew, you know, there's no doubt it's absolutely certain within 24 hours, maybe slightly longer, but within the next couple of days, maybe sooner, the police are going to have to announce an official criminal investigation into his activities in the past. And if you look at the Epstein files, if the Epstein files are true, then what Peter Mandelson is
released by the Department of Justice, Kevin, yeah. I think that there's some legitimacy
there. Well, I mean, I think the only thing people might say, well, are these emails, is the stuff in the Epstein files absolutely genuine? I think you're right, 99% we can take that to the bank, but just in case you have to say that. But if the Epstein files are genuine, then Prince Andrew stands accused of doing exactly what Peter Mandelson did. That was flog secrets to Jeffrey Epstein, British national secrets. Now, if Mandelson's being criminally investigated, then Prince Andrew, or the former Prince Andrew, has to be criminally investigated soon. This is extraordinary. Fairly soon, the brother of the king will be at the centre of an official police investigation for a very serious criminal offence. This is a crisis the like of which the royal family probably has never faced. It's extraordinary.
Not in the lifetime of this royal family. I mean, I would say it's worse than the abdication, because with the abdication came in a much more likable and qualified family. And, you know, King Charles, I don't think he's seen something this heavy and this daunting. And it is my understanding, and I feel confident in repeating it, that he is receiving this information at the same time we are, that he wasn't briefed by any ambassadors or any government officials prior to this material coming out. You know, the picture of Andrew on all fours, these vulgar emails from Fergie about shag weekends. I hope I'm allowed to say that. But you know, he is shocked and appalled and finding out about it in real time and overwhelmed with what people must think of him and his family, because you are who you associate with, and, you know, trying to navigate a very difficult situation.
Yes, indeed. Now, it wouldn't be right, Kinsey, for me to have a conversation with you without mentioning Meghan and Harry. So let's do it. So she turned up the other night to the 15% pledge in LA in her finery, a kind of white gown with a huge...
A duvet
with a huge black trail. Now, so she made a big thing of this. Where was Harry?
Well, where was Harry? I mean, they say that Harry likes to sit at home with the kids, I guess. I don't know. Maybe there was a 2-for-1 at the local dispensary for brownies, and Harry was busy. I never know with Harry. All I can tell you is I have a much harder time digesting Harry's testimony when he sits on the stand and tells a courtroom in the United Kingdom that Meghan, that the media has made Meghan's life a misery, when I can sit there and watch Meghan pose and pose and pose on a red carpet in LA. You know, that's the antithesis of the media makes my life a misery. That's a woman that is literally chasing the spotlight.
What is the 15% pledge? Do you know?
It is a charity that platforms Black creators, Black creators, people that are heavily involved in philanthropy in the Black community. And this specific gala was to honor Beyonce's mother, Tina Knowles, who we know Meghan has established a relationship with. Meghan had Tina on her podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, when Tina was promoting her book. We have not seen much of Meghan engage with Beyonce since Meghan brought up a private message Beyonce sent her on the Netflix series. But Meghan has appeared at 2 Beyonce concerts since then, worked with Tina Knowles on her podcast. Yeah. We're now seeing her supporting Tina in this capacity. But I have to tell you, I suspect Meghan is trying to stay in closely with Tina Knowles and potentially Beyonce, because Beyonce is the chair of this year's Met Gala. And I think Meghan is desperate, based on Paris Fashion Week, based on this appearance, I think Meghan's desperate to get a ticket to the Met Gala, which she's never been invited to before and she's never appeared at before.
If she does, will she take Harry? Where was Harry? Why didn't Harry go to the 15% pledge with her? Well, that's a bit odd.
Here's my argument. Where's your mom? I think that showing up solo does not dispel the rumors that no one likes you in this town. Show up with your mom.
Including your husband.
Yeah. Let your mom have a glam night out on the town. But the fact that she shows up solo, I don't think that benefits her. I don't think it benefits her brand or the rumors that she's a bully.
Sensational breaking news just about 20 minutes ago that the King has made clear his profound concern at allegations over Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's conduct, and the King will stand ready to support the police if approached over the claims. In other words, His Majesty is fully aware that a criminal investigation into his brother is imminent, and quite rightly he has offered his full support and cooperation to that investigation. Let's talk to the royal editor, royal author, Robert Jobson. Welcome, Robert.
Hi, Kevin.
How you doing, mate? Now, listen, this is massive, isn't it? This is literally just broken. Now, for several days now, particularly in the newspapers yesterday, we've been looking at the Epstein files. There are, if these emails are genuine, there are copies of these emails which were confidential British government information when Andrew was trade envoy, which literally he would receive and minutes later just almost by rote automatically forward them to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the fact that Peter Mandelson is under criminal investigation for allegedly doing exactly that means, and the King clearly realises, we are only hours away from the police announcing a criminal investigation into what Prince Andrew got up to when he was trade envoy. This is dramatic, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the King trying to get ahead of the curve as well. I mean, there has been, something like, well, since 2010 and even before that, serious issues that have been effectively not dealt with, covered up, some might say. And the King is trying to get above the curve. But the reality is, this should have all been dealt with before. I think the lack of transparency in this case has been pretty appalling. And also, I find that at the moment, this is going to be at most a scoping exercise. It's very difficult to prove intent with these cases on leaking information. You've got to prove that there's been, again, that you meant intent. And, this could be a very complex case. But isn't it strange, that Mandelson's houses, both have been raided, haven't they, in the last couple of, they were raided, they've been invited in to take materials out, etc. But Prince Andrew or Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has just moved, and where's all his stuff going from a 30-room mansion into a 5-bedroom house? So where is all that? And who? And that surely is the sort of thing that if they're doing a scoping exercise, the police will want to know where it is and can they go and have access to it all. But it is a move in the right direction by the King. I think he has no choice. I mean, William obviously has been a driving force in a lot of this. He made a statement this morning through his press spokesman from Riyadh, and clearly they wanted to get ahead of it there because they don't want his trip there to be completely dominated by it. But again, it was a bit of a, I don't know, it didn't really go far enough. It simply said we're concerned, we're sorry for them, we have to think of the victims. No, it's more than that. We have to deal with naming the guy, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, and actually dealing with the issues, because otherwise you've got an existential threat against the institution itself, and the buck stops with him, the King.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Rob. I mean, it isn't an exaggeration to say that how the King and the royal family deal with this crisis, this Andrew crisis, will dictate the very future of the institution of the royal family, of the British monarchy. They get this wrong, and this could be existential. Andrew has brought this royal family to an extraordinary low point. It's remarkable. Did you ever think you'd see anything like this?
No, I mean, I've been assessing over the years, the big scandals that we've seen. They've always tended to be more personal than actually criminal. But, this is probably, I mean, I've been around for a few of them. I wasn't around for the abdication crisis in '36. But I think this is now on a scale of that in terms of the actual impact of the monarchy itself. This is a murkier scandal than even the Profumo affair, which had all the elements in the 1960s. This has got everybody from the royal family to the heart of government to diplomacy involved here. And I think that people really are sick and tired of institutions that can hide behind the Official Secrets Act, can hide behind the freedom of information and say, well, the royals are exempt for that. Well, I don't think that washes anymore. It's no good us reading about this stuff in 50 years. Both you and I, Kevin, won't be here. The reality is it will pass
in 5 years.
Well, that's right. But the point of it is people want to know about it now. And if there are documents that are related to this wrongdoing, criminality, then we should be able to read them now, and we should be able to see them now. And we want to know who knew what, when, and why there was no action. It does also appear, sadly, that Her late Majesty, maybe with a blind spot to her favourite son or whatever, certainly didn't launch an investigation, didn't necessarily act decisively enough, I think is the fairest way of putting it, when it came to Andrew. And it's been left really on Charles's watch, which he must be furious about, to deal with this. He has tried. I think that he has tried, in terms of stripping someone of his title in his house, but that's not accountability. That's just embarrassment. That's not accountability. These victims, quite rightly, and the people around them are demanding accountability.
Yeah, we need a change. I keep saying that what I think has occurred over the past week involving Andrew, involving Mandelson, involving Starmer, the government, it's almost as if we've reached a crossroads in the establishment system. And the royal family has always felt capable of protecting its own secrets just through deference, really. Oh, you can't really look into us. Oh, there's a convention in the House of Commons that MPs do not discuss the royal family. They need to get rid of that convention right now. All of this deference has got to stop. And King Charles and the royal family, I think William's across it, I think the King is being dragged kicking and screaming to a realization that the times they are changing, and you cannot keep these secrets anymore. You've got to have transparency, right?
We've just seen, look at the establishment of this country. We've just seen the Archbishop of Canterbury unseated and replaced over this abuse scandal in the Church of England. This abuse scandal here is horrific, what's been going on with this guy. But also, it does seem ironic, and to me, that it's almost like the old Al Capone thing. It's not the crime of being a gangster that he was done for. It was his accounting. The fact is, it's something else we're dealing with here. It's not that the sex trafficking and these awful crimes that have been committed against girls. It's going to be on leaking official secret documents, etc. The bottom line is, at the moment, in this terrible scandal, only one woman is actually in prison over it. One woman. Yeah. Involving all these high-level men and elite society positions and very wealthy people. One woman is in prison. That, to me, it just doesn't seem right.
That's what I keep saying, Rob, that this is a scandal of men. And the only person who's gone to prison is a woman. So that kind of sums it up. But the royal family, I mean, I think that, late in life, they're getting to grips with this. They're beginning to realise. I mean, there was a lot of pressure on them to start talking about the victims. They've started to do this. But I think the King has now realised that isn't going to be enough, because there's a police investigation into his brother coming down the tracks. And just theoretically, purely speculatively, Rob, suppose, no one's saying he's guilty, but suppose the former Prince Andrew does end up getting nicked, prosecuted for this, that could involve a custodial sentence. What would that mean for the royal family?
It's just mind-blowing, frankly. I don't know if they could really necessarily survive it, really. I think that the truth of the matter is, it's not also going to be in what they knew and when, because if he is found, at the moment he says he's done no wrongdoing, and we have to accept that. We have to accept that, even though we do know he's lied, and we do know he's had a relationship with a convicted paedophile sex trafficker who's an appalling person. But the fact is, where does it leave them? Because for 15 years or so, they've been paying lawyers to keep this thing away, keep it at arm's length, paid out to Virginia Giuffre, the tragic girl that was ended up committing suicide, millions of pounds. So who knew what when, and how much did they know? And if they did know things that were wrong, then surely that they're guilty of something themselves. So it's not just a case. It's not just a case really of just saying, oh, it's Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, he goes to prison. It's really, as you were saying, they're going to have to take a good long look at the system, of this deferential system, and say, no, we've got to get in the 21st century. If there are things, they've got to act as where there is consequences to actions.
Yeah, and I think also we have to ask the question. I mean, it's done and dusted now. But when the Queen agreed to give her son, her second son Andrew, millions of pounds to help him pay that 12 million quid to Virginia Giuffre to keep her out of civil court in New York, that was hush money to keep the truth about the alleged persecution, victimisation of the victims, these poor girls. That was hush money, and the royal family, I don't think, should ever have paid that. There are still a lot of questions.
There's an error been made. I mean, there's no doubt that the late Queen, will, her decision making there was wrong, really. And I think that, and the fact is, what was the point of it anyway? It was hush money, yes, but this poor girl then killed herself, but her book came out anyway, as we always say, and eventually, hopefully, with journalism, and the truth will come out. And it's certainly her version of the truth came out in a book after her death, which have sort of again started this thing rolling again. But there's still many more emails out there and more evidence out there. I'm sure that we haven't even managed to get to yet, and
this could get even worse.
It's a really serious problem for the royal family.
Yeah, well, this could get even worse. If I was the Queen, when Andrew came to her and said, "Hey, Mum, any chance you could give me 12 million quid?" Oh, what do you want that 12 million quid for, then, Andrew? Well, I want to give it to this girl to stop her going to court. 12 million quid, but I've never met her. If I was the Queen, if I was the Queen at that point, I'd say, well, I'll tell you what, you can't have 12 million quid.
All you can say when it comes to it is that, the Queen was in the latter part of a year. She was suffering with cancer, and people around her, though, William and Charles would have, I'm sure, and his courtiers been advising her. But the bottom line is that that was an awful lot of money, and she also supported him in. He allowed her to bring her into the memorial for Prince Philip's memorial, and he was on her arm, and there was a lot of a gasp about that. So I think that there's a serious problem, and this is just the beginning, and the King has had to react the way he has. But it's a lot more to come out, I'm sure.
I think you're right. This is just the beginning. It's going to get even worse.
I was really worried for a moment that you were going to say that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor had endorsed Keir Starmer to stay on as Prime Minister.
No, but I can tell you, Mark, that worryingly for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, Keir Starmer has expressed his full confidence in him, which means he's a goner.
We know how that ends.
No, I'm making that up, folks, but it's only a matter of time. Seriously, Mark, massive development just before you came on. I'll read it out again. This is a statement from Buckingham Palace. The King has made clear his profound concern at allegations over Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's conduct and will stand ready to support the police if approached over the claims. Those claims are that, just like Peter Mandelson, the Prince, as he was then, Prince Andrew, was forwarding secret emails, secret information of this national secrets to Jeffrey Epstein. We've seen the copies of them. If those copies are true, he's done allegedly exactly the same as Peter Mandelson is accused of doing. Therefore, the police have no choice. It's clear the King realises there's going to be a police investigation. Fairly soon, I would suggest within 24 hours, there will be an official criminal investigation into a senior member of the royal family, the King's brother. That is sensational, isn't it?
Kevin, it is sensational. But I'd invite you to look at the two different ways in which the House of Windsor and the Labour government have reacted to Peter Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. The House of Windsor cut him off, Andrew, at the legs, disowned him, and have absolutely nothing to do with this anymore. He is a private citizen. This is a very different approach by the King and the House of Windsor to Keir Starmer's approach to Peter Mandelson, who was defending him only a few weeks ago. So both of them, in my view, should face not just the police investigation. This could well lead to criminal charges, but look at the people over them. I think King Charles has acted brilliantly in this regard. And bear in mind, this is his brother, not a mere cabinet minister or colleague. And the House of Windsor acted with great alacrity here. Stripped him of all of his titles before we knew this, have disowned him. He's only being held at the King's favour. If criminal charges follow, the House of Windsor, Buckingham Palace will support those. So a big difference, isn't there, Kevin, between the way our monarchy has acted and our government has acted.
It's a good
Peter
point.
Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor are not the same thing.
Yeah, it's a good point, Mark, because the royal family, I mean, they were fairly slow on the uptake, but when they got going, they were ahead of the game. They clearly knew there were going to be bombshell revelations in the Epstein file, and that's why they acted swiftly and took all his titles away, turned him into Mr. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, because they knew what was to come. They clearly, the King now knows, I mean, I think we all know, there is a criminal investigation coming into Prince Andrew, and again, he's head of the game, announcing his profound concern and that, and I'm quoting here, he stands ready to support the police if approached. So yeah, ahead of the game. What have we got meanwhile in Downing Street? An ostrich sticking his head into the sand, maintaining that it's quite right for his advisor, his chief of staff Morgan McSweeney, to resign in shame because he made the mistake of recommending that Peter Mandelson was made our man in Washington, our ambassador to the United States of America, something that McSweeney says was wrong, and he takes full responsibility. Well, if the man who advised it has had to resign, then surely the man who took that advice and acted on it also has to resign. That's the Prime Minister. And as I keep saying today, Mark, tell me what you think, but you know, nice try, Morgan, but it is not your position to take full responsibility for the appointment of Peter Mandelson to Washington, because it wasn't your full responsibility. It was the full responsibility of the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and as such, that remains the elephant in the room, and it remains the reason this Prime Minister has to go fairly soon, I would have thought.
Agree with nearly all of that, Kevin. Little bit of respect to Morgan McSweeney. I read his letter in full, and he decided that the only honourable thing he could possibly do was to resign because his advice was poor. It follows from that anyone who followed his advice also needs to resign.
Yes.
That would be the Prime Minister. You can't just resign because your advice is poor and say that's the only honourable thing I can do, but then somebody who followed your advice stays in position. I think that the entire way that Keir Starmer has behaved, particularly over the Mandelson scandal, is appalling, really. He's dissembled. He's only revealed the truth when pushed into a corner. Props to Kemi Badenoch for doing so at Prime Minister's questions. But this is being extracted like pulling teeth. His Director of Communications has gone. His Chief of Staff has gone. There is a Soviet Union-style edict that's just been sent out to, I understand, all of the cabinet to say that they must support him. Yeah. But the leader of the Scottish Labour Party has asked him to resign. The game's up. Sure, the game is up. The Prime Minister has to go. He does not have the support of his party. It's confected. And if his advisors were poor, his decision to follow their advice was even poorer. Yeah. And that is where the buck stops. I think we're hours or days away from the resignation of the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and you wonder why he's so desperately clinging on, because he must see the inevitability of his defenestration before too long. The that got him into this predicament, the uber problem that got him into this predicament, is still there. That is that he, and he alone, decided to appoint Peter Mandelson as our man in Washington, and he alone decided to ignore the advice of the intelligence services, who said this guy is a security risk because of his continued friendship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and to ignore, we now know, the political advice of both of his deputy prime ministers, Angela Rayner and David Lammy. He ignored serious advice from our intelligence and our security services, and sage political advice, and appointed that guy to that job. So the elephant that was in the room this time last week is still there, and it won't be kicked out by playing around the edges and getting rid of people like McSweeney and Tim Allen, will it?
Kevin, it's way worse than you're saying. It's way worse than you're saying. That is a reasonable chain of events. But let's bear in mind that Keir Starmer said that what he was going to bring to public life and to the office of Prime Minister was a total cleaning up of ethics in public service. Everything was going to be clean as a bell. There would be no sleaze left. The entire electorate would be bathed in virtue once he was Prime Minister. His entire criticism of the previous Conservative regime, which I would accept is hard to defend, was it was, completely coloured in sleaze. Now this happens. Where does that leave Keir Starmer? It looks like he was advised that this man was a known associate of a paedophile after his criminal conviction. That didn't seem to weigh with Keir Starmer, whatever Morgan McSweeney's advice was. So suddenly the ethics, the public service, things will be different this time. Pretty much the only thing he stood on to become our Prime Minister, that rug has been ripped away. That this should have been not only vetoed, it shouldn't have got onto his desk if he was remotely serious about that proposition. Now, they could have taken another view. Look, we've got to go and grease the palms in Washington. There's loads of Americans who also hung out with Jeffrey Epstein. We don't really care about the money flows or who slept with who. They could have taken that view, but that was not the view of the Prime Minister. His position was absolutely clear. Sleaze is gone. We are only going to act in the public service. And this is the sleaziest scandal we have seen, not just since Profumo, but probably since the advent of democracy in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, it is the scandal of our lifetime, I think, and the tentacles of it run deep. They really do. Hence, suddenly, Prince Andrew's in it, for God's sake. He has to be investigated. There's no doubt about it. That's why the King has released this statement, because he knows also. Until a couple of days ago, the royal family was under severe pressure to actually say something about Epstein's victims, because damned if old Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor will. Was it yesterday, both Kate and William made it clear that they were deeply concerned for the victims, so they responded to that call. Now the King has, and he's upped the ante by saying he's ready to cooperate with the police. This investigation is coming, and that is extraordinary, with a view to the kind of corruption we're talking about. As I said to you last week, Mark, this is the establishment system is on trial. We won't tolerate any more Peter Mandelsons, or for that matter, any more Prince Andrews. We just won't. What we discovered, do you remember last week? I hope you remember this, Mark, when I said to you, are you aware that Peter Mandelson received a six-figure payoff when he was sacked in disgrace from Washington? Well, it took the papers a week to pick up on that. I was there first. They're saying he got a £55,000 payoff, which was his 3-month contract. But I still hear that it was actually into six figures. And when journalists were approaching Downing Street about this last week, did you pay off this guy who resigned in disgrace? The reply was, that is an HR matter. We do not comment on HR matters. It is exactly this kind of establishment obfuscation that we demand ends right now.
Yeah, Kevin, you're completely right. It seems to me utterly extraordinary that if you're fired in disgrace for basically gross misconduct in any job, that you would then get a payoff, right? Whether you're working in a supermarket or a department store or anywhere else. If you're called in and fired, I don't think your boss then gives you 3 months of pay.
Yeah.
So given that Mandelson was fired basically for gross misconduct, why is there any payoff beyond that minute? Extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Why would you get even more of that money? But I mean, this is a man who says he can't remember receiving $75,000 from Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah.
So the whole system seems corrupt. I just want to circle back, Kevin, if you don't mind, to the Andrew issue, which is obviously disastrous for the royal family. But to doff my cap to the King and the House of Windsor for how they have handled it. I think they've done so with grace to Andrew, the brother of the King, so they've given him somewhere to stay, basically on their own dollar. But other than that, they have cut him loose ahead of the game. You might say there was pressure previously, but once he was stripped of every title, that took people by surprise. It looks to me, look, I'm not particularly a royalist, I'm a Democrat, but it looks to me like the House of Windsor has acted with the sort of alacrity and moral decision-making that we would like from our own democratic government, whereas everything the Labour government does seems to be like pulling teeth. They will only concede something once it's in the public domain. And look, I don't know whether these people will end up going to prison. I don't know what the criminal investigation looks like. This could take years. But of the two elements of our constitution, the royal family and the Houses of Parliament and our Prime Minister, which one comes out of that better from this scandal? Yeah. By far, our King, our Prime Minister, is a disgrace.
Yeah, exactly right. You've got to get real about this. The royal family's real about it. The royal family is in a battle for survival. This could be existential for the royals, and that's why they're acting with just such force. The Prime Minister is in an existential battle and he doesn't seem to realise it. He's going to go fairly soon. Talk to royal commentator, former BBC royal editor, Michael Cole. Welcome, Michael.
Good afternoon, Kevin. You know the word unprecedented, we're hearing quite a lot of it. And this scandal really is unprecedented. It used to be said in the simple days that scandals in America were all about money and scandals in Britain were all about sex. Well, this scandal embraces, if that's the right verb, both sex and money, and it is impossible to exaggerate the seriousness of the situation as it pertains to the royal family and to the monarchy. I think, without exaggeration, it's possible to say that it's the gravest scandal the royal family has faced since the abdication on December 10th, 1936 of King.
I think you're not alone in believing that, Michael, and you know, you're someone we should listen to on this issue. Here's the thing. This is the story, I think, today. Yesterday, the King, again, unprecedented, an extraordinary moment. I was live on air when it happened. I said, this is sensational. It was when the King made clear that him and the royal family had the utmost sympathy for the victims of Epstein's sexual abuse. This clearly is a reference to Virginia Giuffre, who accused Andrew of sexually abusing her on 3 different continents. He, of course, denies that, but gave her £12 million not to go to a civil court in New York and talk all about it. So make of that what you will. Now, the King also said that he would cooperate, support fully any investigation by the police, because an investigation is coming. I'm surprised it hasn't been announced already, but very soon the police will announce an official criminal investigation into the former Prince Andrew for allegedly effectively selling documents, secrets, from his time as a British envoy to Jeffrey Epstein, because he was clearly getting money from Epstein and was passing him these secrets. So that will be the nature of the investigation. The King said, I will cooperate fully with any probe into my brother's activities. Big moment, big moment. It was the moment, you could say, if you use the vernacular, that the King threw his brother to the wolves. But here's the problem. A lot of people saying, well, yes, the King is very decisive, has been now for a couple of months, but he took his time. He took too long. And there's one incident that the royal family have got to atone for, and they've got to atone for in a big way. It is this. It is when Andrew handed Virginia Giuffre £12 million not to go to court. That was hush money. That was hush money to keep secret the sexual abuse that Jeffrey Epstein and his male mates were handing out to their poor victims all over the world. That is a terrible look for the royal family. We understand Andrew couldn't afford the £12 million and went to his mother, the Queen, and she helped him out with that figure. I think that was a terrible mistake by the Queen. The whole saga was a terrible mistake by the royal family. They should never have got involved in handing over hush money to keep Jeffrey Epstein's secrets. And for that, the King owes the nation and the world, I think, a much more effusive apology.
Yeah, and of course, what you didn't mention, but that's the end of that sad story. Virginia Giuffre committed suicide in Australia last year. The word unprecedented comes back again. The statement from Buckingham Palace yesterday, which was happened when you were on air, is truly unprecedented. The King trying to mitigate the situation and distance the monarchy as far as possible from his younger brother. Of course, he has stripped him of his titles, of his ranks, of his patronages, of his styles, and the statement pointedly referred to him as Mr. Mountbatten-Windsor. Of course, now, as you so rightly say, the matter is over to the Thames Valley Police, because they have received complaints, I think, from within Parliament and also from the pressure group Republic about the conduct of the former Prince Andrew. And they are bound to look into it. Now, it depends on how far that goes, whether it meets the thresholds, but the charges are very, very serious, as you've indicated.
Yeah.
The charges are, as I understand them, from the Epstein papers, which have been released by the Department of Justice in Washington, show that reports that were prepared after the visits by Prince Andrew, who was then Prince Andrew, and for 10 years was the trade envoy to Hong Kong, Singapore, and Vietnam, got to Jeffrey Epstein. Whether he was able to use them to make money or not, we don't know. Also, the then Prince Andrew alerted Epstein to possibilities of making money by rebuilding Helmand Province in Afghanistan, where so many British troops fought and died. I think 260 of them, something of that order. But anyway, one was enough, and we all saw them coming through Royal Wootton Bassett on their way back to the graves of heroes in this country. So these are serious matters indeed, and it will be up to the police to decide whether they reach the threshold. It would be interesting, Kevin, to speculate. I mean, was the Queen's younger son asked to sign the Official Secrets Act?
Well, I mean, I would imagine he was, but I don't think that won't be a key factor in the case. The point is here, Michael, is if Peter Mandelson is under investigation for these emails and memos that were found in the Epstein files that he forwarded to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, there's always the possibility that these are forgeries, so you've got to be careful here. But if they are genuine, then it's quite right, of course, that Peter Mandelson is being investigated by the police, a proper criminal investigation. Now, if that is the case, he stands accused of doing exactly what the Epstein files show that Prince Andrew was doing with confidential British documents as well, forwarding them to Epstein. So if Mandelson is under investigation, pretty soon, Prince Andrew, as he then was, or Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, just has to be. There is no ifs, no buts. He has to be investigated. And that, I think, is a huge crisis for the royal family. And somehow or other, the king has got to do a lot more than he's done so far. I think it was William that... I mean, I was reading 2 days ago, pieces in the paper by historians, A.M. Wilson in the Mail, saying the king must say sorry to Epstein's victims. The very next day, yesterday I believe it was, or was it Sunday, Prince William in Riyadh, over in Saudi Arabia, through his spokesman, Kate and William, issued their apology to the victims. And clearly William is saying to his dad, you better get with the programme. So later in the day, Charles did it. But in terms of the king, our sovereign, it's not enough. And they've got to get to grips with the handing over of £12 million to keep the secrets of what Jeffrey Epstein did. That is a dreadful look for the royal family. They need to negotiate that, or navigate those difficult waters, don't you think?
Yeah, if there's one positive aspect, and I think it's a qualified positive aspect, but it's a real one. One good thing there is that from the very beginning of this scandal, before it became as intense as it is now, Prince William took great steps to show, and obviously it was the reality, that he was shouldering as far as possible his uncle, Prince Andrew, as he then was. You saw that in the photo calls at various events. He was not wanting to stand next to him.
Yes, I remember that. That was the funeral of someone, wasn't it? That,
I think.
Yeah.
But he was certainly putting as much distance as possible between himself and the then Duke of York, as he was. There you are. You see them after this funeral.
That was it. Yeah. Yeah.
There we are. But not wanting to talk to him, talking to anybody other than him, and getting some distance between himself and the Duke. Now, the Duke's wanting to talk to him. Does William want to speak to him?
No, he doesn't. It was, yeah.
Does he not? He looks away, not a word, not a word. In other words, please don't bother me.
Yeah.
And I think that bodes well because, of course, at the moment, there was an unprecedented, to use that word again, statement yesterday from the Prince and Princess of Wales. He's now in Saudi, trying to do his job.
Yeah.
He'll be going to Australia with the princess later this year. At least that's the program. Yeah. And he's got to rise above all of them.
William is leading the way on all this. He realises that the royal family are in trouble on this. They haven't done nearly enough, and we are going to demand, actually, much more of a statement from the king. They need to start talking about Andrew. No more of this kind of vague parameters and obfuscation, not mentioning details. They need to start talking about Andrew. Otherwise, God knows what's going to happen. But it's time now to talk about the royal family. Well, let's go over to my esteemed next guest, the former BBC royal correspondent, Jenny Bond. Hello, Jenny.
Hello.
The royal family, I suggest this may well be, in terms of the public attitude to them, the worst crisis they've had since they seriously misjudged the public mood after the death of Diana. There was a sort of outpouring of rage, fury against the royal family then, because they got it all wrong. They raised their game, if you remember, and just about pulled through. Right now, I think they have a similar problem. Polls are revealing, that only 45% of the country are supporting the royals at the moment. The majority of people in polls are saying, had enough of them. And here's their problem. I don't think that they have the king. William's doing his best, but the king, the rest of the royal family, they just have not addressed the Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor problem adequately. A kind of brief statement from William while he's in Saudi Arabia, where his entire tour has been completely overshadowed by this, saying, I'm very concerned about allegations against Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, and our thoughts are with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Quite right, quite right. The King then finally says something similar. I think what we're calling for, what we're demanding, is a much more effusive apology. We want the King to mention his brother, to talk about exactly what he's charged with or allegedly accused of, but more importantly, to talk more of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, the sex crime victims of that guy. The royal family hitherto have been very slow on the uptake with this, and they have not been dynamic enough in this situation. And as I say, Jenny, I think this is a big crisis, and I reckon they need to raise their game. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're right to draw a parallel with Diana's death. Then, back in 1997, they couldn't keep up with public opinion, and they were caught on the hop all the time trying to change the funeral plans, etc. And similarly now, I think they are being caught on the hop. They can't catch a break. They can't get ahead of this story. One reason for that is that they are seeing the release of the Epstein emails at the same time as the rest of us, so they don't know what's coming. And almost every day, it's nearly a fortnight, isn't it now, that allegation after revelation, allegation, whatever you're going to call it, has come out day after day, and they're sort of playing catch up to an extent. I think that strong action has been taken by the King at the end of last year, stripping Andrew of all his titles, booting him this year out of his home. But I think I agree with you that the time has come for firmer action. Personally, I think we've got two things going on here, actually, because the allegations today is that he released further confidential information to Epstein when he was trade envoy, very sensitive information about possible investment opportunities of them in the minerals of Afghanistan. What on earth was he doing if he doing that? Yeah. Absolute madness. So we've got his behaviour as trade envoy, and of course his then behaviour as regard these sex allegations and his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein as a convicted paedophile. So two things going on in parallel. I think on the trade envoy allegations, the palace must be absolutely transparent, release all documents they have to do with his time as trade envoy. And on the sex allegations, I think they need to say to Andrew, and I think the King needs to say, look, Andrew, if you do not comply with the requests to say what you know to the American authorities, if you don't do that, then you're not staying at Sandringham. I'm not funding your lifestyle. You're out on your own. Yeah,
exactly right. The public in these polls are calling for the King to no longer look after his brother, to kick him out of Sandringham. But I think if Andrew responded to the demands for him to be a little bit more contrite in these circumstances and perhaps make a statement himself, then the King, people would accept the King looking after him. But if he doesn't do this, the King, I think, has got to kick him out. As we're speaking, Jenny, and this is very significant, literally this has broken in the last couple of minutes, Thames Valley police have confirmed that Andrew Mountbatten is now at the centre of a criminal investigation over his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. So that is the first official confirmation that he is now being criminally investigated by the Thames Valley Police. Again, a very significant development that I think the royal family somehow need to respond to more dramatically than they have so far. It hasn't been enough so far, so much so that some people are saying, well, look, the King just can't seem to handle these situations. He's a man of a different era. It's time for him to step aside and let William take over. It does seem to me that William is the only one of the royal family who really all the way through this has had an idea of just how serious this situation is. The King seems to me to be someone who thought he could get away with the usual kind of vague statement and off we go to open another library. Things have got to change.
I'm not sure that's entirely fair to Charles, actually. I'm told by the palace that he has been taking the lead on this, that the supposition that a lot of us made that William was pushing his father is rather exaggerated. Okay. Because it is, of course, it is quite hard for Charles because Andrew is his brother, and I think he is concerned about his physical and mental well-being. I mean, he has, to an extent, I suppose, to offer him some protection because he's under a security threat, clearly. And mental health these days is something everyone has to talk about. However, what you've told me now about the police not only assessing the information but actually investigating him, a criminal investigation, is clearly extremely severe and grave, and I don't know what the palace will do next.
Yeah, here I am sounding all very knowledgeable, but I agree with you. I don't know how they go forward with this. I think the best way, Jenny, would be, I mean, it's a long shot, but if the King could persuade his brother Andrew to at least make some kind of public statement, to clear the air. That would, I think, buy the royal family some time. But the trouble with Andrew is, he's just an appalling oaf who doesn't seem to understand. He has no comprehension of the trouble that he's got himself into and the low point, the astonishing low point he has brought the royal family to.
He is a man who's always lacked self-awareness, and his true character has been one of a very arrogant man, entitled man. The man I knew was all of those things. I think this was the problem for his mother as well. I have sympathy for her, but even her reputation, Queen Elizabeth, her reputation is being tarnished, certainly questioned. I mean, why didn't she see what her son was doing? On the other hand, I know as a mother, and you perhaps as a parent, you want to believe your child, and if they say, I didn't do it, you want to defend them, and I guess that's where she was.
Yeah, she was
blinded by her love.
She loved. We all know Andy was her favourite and all that. But that you've brought up that sort of issue of the Queen and Prince Andrew. Here's where I think the public owe a massive owed an apology. The fact that Prince Andrew, as he was then, possibly with the financial help of his mother, the late great Queen, handed Virginia Giuffre £12 million not to go to civil court in New York. That was effectively the royal family handing over hush money to keep Jeffrey Epstein's sordid secrets. And that is a very bad look for the royal family. I think at the very least they need to apologise for that.
Well, you may well be right, yes. I mean, I suppose the palace view of that will be that the Jubilee was coming up. They didn't want the Queen's Jubilee
It's not enough, though, is it, Jenny?
Overshadowed. And it's not. They're in serious trouble now. I think you're quite right. I think it will come through. I think the monarchy will come through. But they've got a big battle, a PR battle, a battle with public opinion now. And they need to do the right thing. They need to be seen to be absolutely scrupulously transparent and accountable on all of these issues.
I think you're exactly right, and their problem is that traditionally they're not particularly transparent, the royal family. They like to keep their secrets, but something has happened and they need to abandon their impulse to secrecy. Extraordinary revelations, they're going to be in the Sun tomorrow. They kind of emerged yesterday, when Pat Bondi was fighting with all the Democrats in Washington. That picture of Prince Andrew kneeling over a girl who's redacted, I mean, fully clothed, to be fair, at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. It turns out that girl is one of his sex trafficking victims. And now that really ups the ante in terms of the trouble that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is in. Gordon Brown, our former Prime Minister today, telling the police to get their skates on and interview this guy, not just because of his potential criminal activity selling British secrets to his friend Jeffrey Epstein when he was a trade envoy, but also allegedly because he could well be part of Epstein's sex trafficking operation. The Gordon Brown saying the police need to interview him fast. This is such an escalating crisis for the royal family, isn't it?
Well, first of all, I want to say, color me cynical, that an American politician says this. I feel like American politicians are using this to build their own platforms. And I say that because I'm watching your country self-destruct over this. Meanwhile, there are a lot of very big names on that list of people still in leadership in the United States that are just laying low, you know, that aren't having to deal with any consequences whatsoever. You know, we don't see them demanding, we don't see Congress demanding them go sit down and be interviewed in front of them over the Epstein files. So, you know, I need to hear one more person tell me that that is a sex trafficking victim before I'm going to take it as truth. But
yeah, it's Prince Andrew, so I'm leaning towards it's true.
I know.
It's him, for God's sake, you know. You know, these are just allegations at the moment.
Don't you also think he's such a moron? He's such an idiot. He's such an entitled piece of garbage that he might and Virginia Giuffre says this in her memoir. He felt entitled to her. Like, he was like, you're lucky to be with me because I'm a prince. Does he really think of these women? Does he understand the circumstances of how these women are coming into his life? Or does he think Jeffrey Epstein's like, hey, want to go hook up with a prince? I don't know if he's properly processing the situation or if he just is such a total tool. Does that make sense?
I think he is a total tool, but it's well known that in this entire disgraceful saga, he's in denial. He doesn't realise, or perhaps he's deliberately trying not to realise the depth of the trouble he's in. He is going to get...
To the point where his friends are asking if he has mental health issues. And I'm not talking about, I'm depressed. I'm saying you're not processing information properly.
Yeah,
is that a mental health issue?
I think he does have a problem. I mean, he is notoriously thick or dumb, as you say in the States, and he's pompous, and he's got himself into a world of trouble. Now, yet this morning's Sun, today's Sun newspaper, you no doubt will have seen it, sensationally reveals. You know, I think that the lowest point of the royal family in recent years was when they ill-advisedly gave Andrew £12 million, 12 million quid, to hand to Virginia Giuffre. Effectively, that was hush money to keep Jeffrey Epstein's secrets. The royal family should never have got involved in that grubby deal. Today, this morning, we find out what we always suspected, that Andrew didn't have a pot to pee in, so he had to borrow most of the money from his mother, the Queen, the late great Queen. Massive mistake by her. She didn't often make mistakes, but that was a huge mistake, and it was a huge mistake by our current king because he funded the rest of the money when he was Prince Charles. The king owes us a massive apology for this huge mistake that they made, don't you think?
And Prince Philip as well. It was Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth, and Prince Charles at the time. I've been defending him for the last few weeks, saying, look, it's my understanding he hated his brother. So why would he know his brother's schedule? Why would he know his brother's social circle? He couldn't stand him. They couldn't carry on a conversation. But if I'm asking someone for millions of dollars in a loan, I'm going to need to know exactly where that money is going and what it's for. I have a very hard time defending him about this particular instance. But what I have spoken to people that worked at the palace, and they have told me that Andrew lied to his family and said that this wasn't true, and that said that this was that he was you know, that this was basically extortion, and the family was trying to protect him. Again, you know,
I'll tell you what exactly. I know what they were doing. And I've got some sympathy for it. It was the Queen's special Jubilee year.
Jubilee.
Yeah, it was a Jubilee year. They didn't want those celebrations to be overshadowed by this sordid, grubby affair. So they gave Andrew the money. That was a massive mistake. But the idea, you know, I mean, the King, or the Prince as he was then, and the Queen and Prince Philip, they're not stupid. If Andrew's going to go to them and say, can I have £12 million to give to Virginia Giuffre to stop her going into the New York Civil Court? Yeah, what do you want that for? Well, she's telling lies about me. It's not true, but can you give me 12 million? You know, what they would say is, look, if it's not true, you don't have to give her £12 million. Right. They gave him that money. It was hush money to make that problem go away. As I say, Her Majesty the Queen didn't make many mistakes, but that was a massive mistake. It was a massive mistake on Prince Philip's part, and it was a massive mistake on the then Prince of Wales, Charles's part. And Charles is the king now. He's got to apologise for this.
And can we seriously take a moment to process, like, I was there for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Was I not going to show up if Andrew was going to civil court? No, I was still, I got COVID. I was still going to show up. I showed up, I got COVID in those crowds. I got stuck there in your country because they wouldn't let me on an airplane. No, I was still going to go to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and I did. You know, like, I know that you're exactly right. That was the thought process. But would we have stayed home? No, we would have still gone out and celebrated the royal family if all this chaos was surrounding Andrew, because we would have been able to say, well, Andrew's not Queen Elizabeth. Let's celebrate Queen Elizabeth because we love her. You're right, but the justification, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. I mean, as I say, if somebody wants to borrow 12 million quid from me, I mean, first of all, they'll be in a bit of trouble, because last time I looked at my bank account...
Because you only have 11 million.
No, you'd be in trouble trying to borrow 12 quid off me, never mind 12 million. But... I'd want to know why, and if the reason was, well, there's this woman telling lies about me, so I want to get her to stop telling lies and give her £12 million, I would just say, they're telling lies, what's the problem? What's the problem? I mean, you know, let's not beat about the bush. Andrew continues to say, you know, I handed Virginia Giuffre, God rest her soul, by the way, poor lady took her own life. I handed her £12 million, but I actually absolutely never met her, and I didn't do what she accuses me of doing, which is sexually abuse her on 3 different continents. Nobody believes Andrew when he says that, do they?
Well, they shouldn't, because we've seen, thanks to these DOJ drops, that's legitimately not true. Ghislaine Maxwell specifically says in an email to Jeffrey Epstein, I was there when we took that picture. That picture is legitimate. So, I mean, that's just one of many instances I can give you going through those emails and Andrew's lies popping up. He broke up with Epstein after he became a convicted sex offender, yet he's literally sending government secrets months later. I mean, you can't trust Andrew to save his life, which is why I don't think that he should testify before Congress. What a waste of resources. And I just don't want to hear from him. I want him to go away.
Oh, well, I want him to be fully criminally investigated by the police. I want his collar felt. I want him to be interviewed by the British police very, very quickly, both for allegedly selling British secrets to his buddy Jeffrey Epstein, and also because of allegations that he was right at the centre of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking operations. He needs to be interviewed fast by our police on 2 counts. Now, Kinsey, I'm finding this conversation very strange, because you and I haven't mentioned the gruesome twosome yet, Meghan and Harry. What's happening with them?
Well, there was an interesting story that came out this week here in the States that Meghan's reportedly seeing a memoir, an opportunity of writing a memoir as a way to reclaim her story. But sources say Prince Harry is doing everything he can to block it, fearing it could derail his efforts to repair ties with the royal family, which we're seeing very aggressively right now due to the Invictus Games coming up there. But according to reports here, Meghan's been offered, a multi-million dollar deal. I don't think that there is. That's not hard for me to imagine, a publisher offering Meghan.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But she has got to know by now, 6 years in, that she will look like a miserable, bitter woman stuck in the past because the deal is she would have to talk about her time within the British royal family.
Of course.
Meghan's justifying it by going, well, this is finally my time. I was silenced. This is finally my time to tell my side of the story. We got 6 hours of Netflix, 90 minutes of Oprah Winfrey, spare. How many times do we have to hear your multiple versions of events? We got, what was it, Omid Scobie's book, where he claims who the royal racists were. I mean, we've heard a million sides of her story, but apparently it's creating friction at home because Harry is so desperate to get back into the family.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, Harry. That's not going to happen. Andrew Allison from Popular Conservatives. Andrew, yeah, this is causing a hell of a row where I live. The council, as I say, essentially is proposing whole areas of parks will be, not only will you not be able to allow your dog to run free off the lead, which does apply to quite a lot of areas already, but you won't be allowed to take your dog at all. And what the critics are saying, this is because Muslims don't like dogs. This is, it's no wonder, as I keep saying in my hilarious tabloid way, it's no wonder that pet lovers in my area are barking mad about this.
Yeah, very good, Kevin. Of course, I've got no idea whether or not Camden Council are proposing these extra restrictions because Muslims don't like dogs. I couldn't possibly comment on that. But I think the main problem here, as I see it, is a complete lack of communication. I think that these public space protection orders are used far too liberally to prevent people from doing ordinary law-abiding things. And it strikes me that council seem to have armies of bureaucrats who just seem to want to ban things and want to come up with restrictions against our lives. I would just wish they would get out of the way. But if Camden Council has got a good, legitimate reason for extending these PSPOs, then communicate it. Tell everybody about it. Go into detail. Write articles for local newspapers, go into radio and television and explain it to local residents. And you might actually get them on side, and you may also just stop the rumour mills going around as well.
And also I want to know, because I'm familiar with the whole area, what exactly does Camden Council, what do those town hall tyrants think that dog owners are doing wrong in parks? And I go to a lot of these parks. Sadly, my little dog Chaz is no longer with us, but until a couple of months ago, I was among them regularly. I didn't see any sort of terrible behaviour on the part of dog owners. Obviously they let their dogs run free. Why attack? As people are saying, why attack the good old British tradition of taking your little dog for a walk in the park?
Indeed, and I agree with you. Responsible dog owners, and the vast majority of dog owners are responsible, wouldn't dream of letting a dog off a leash in a children's play park. It would be utterly irresponsible, and they simply wouldn't do that. Irresponsible dog owners will just completely ignore any restrictions that are there anyway. So it's not going to make any difference to them. I can't understand why they just want to place so many restrictions on people who have got no option but to walk their dogs in these parks, have they? I mean, I live in a little village in East Yorkshire, Kevin. There's plenty of open spaces. There's fields I can take a dog on it if I was a dog owner. But when you live in a city, there are fewer spaces where you can exercise your dog. And this is just making it a lot harder for responsible dog owners just to give their pets some decent exercise.
Indeed. Let me better give Camden Council their due. A spokesperson told us this consultation process is nothing new to what is already in place. Camden's existing public space protection order allows the council to take action against irresponsible dog owners, such as those who do not clear up after their dogs. Areas off limits to dogs include children's play areas, sports pitches and nature reserves, helping protect children and wildlife. We welcome residents' opinions at this consultation stage, which we will review and take into consideration when deciding whether to extend the order. I mean, the mystery there for me, Andrew, is why they're doing this. Why are they extending the rules and regulations that apply to taking your dog for a walk? I don't get it. And as I say, critics think it may be cultural. That around where I live, there's a pretty big Muslim Islamic community, and Muslims don't like dogs. It's well known. Try and get yourself an Uber and take your dog with you, and you'll experience a lot of trouble. I know, because I've been there myself. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do see exactly what you're saying. And I go back to what I said before as well, Kevin. It's a complete lack of communication. You said, in all fairness to Camden Council, they've issued this statement. Yes, because Talk has asked them for a statement. And in all fairness to you, and you are a local resident, of course, personally, But they should not be issuing statements like this just because you've asked for it. They should be issuing these statements and being absolutely open and clear with local residents right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And they're not. So it's a complete lack of communication.
Well, it put it this way, it's ham-fisted communication. They did put out this tweet on February the 11th mentioning possible new restrictions in parks. And that tweet, they say, or it is said, sparked accusations of cultural plots and attacks on British traditions, leading the council to delete it the following day on February the 12th without comment. So they put this tweet up saying, hey, we're going to crack down on dog walking. And the next day they took it down because they got a lot of criticism.
Well, the tweet didn't really say anything, though, did it?
I know.
I mean, you're right, it is ham-fisted communication, because the tweet didn't really explain anything. It didn't tell you, as a resident in Camden, Kevin, exactly why they were planning to do this.
Yeah, look, I mean...
it's total failure.
Yeah, and, they're talking about ongoing complaints of fouling, there are rogue dog owners who don't clear up after their dogs, but most people do. I don't perceive a sudden explosive crisis in dog fouling. And they also talk about, complaints concerning dog bites. Again, that's a perennial problem, but I don't see anything recently escalating on that front. I just don't understand what this is all about, but it does seem to me that it may be cultural. You know what these councils are like.
Yeah, and it could be, very much for that reason. But going back to dog fouling, Kevin. I mean, when I was growing up in the 70s and the 80s, there was dog poo all over the place. I mean, it used to be really bad. And now, as you say, I hardly ever see any at all. And you see owners taking their dogs for a walk with their bags and the little shovels, and they're cleaning it up after them. And I see that on a regular basis. So I can't even see how dog fouling is an issue, unless in one particular part of Camden it is.
Well, I don't think that there's been any explosion in irresponsible dog ownership around where I live, or indeed around the country. There's always going to be problems involving that, but I don't understand why Camden Council thinks suddenly it's this massive problem.